These are my defensive superlatives of the week for week 5. So, in terms of going back, since it takes me a while to study and extract, I'll start with Courtney Cox. Not that Courtney Cox. This is not somebody who's. It's been their day, their month, and their year pretty recently. This Courtney Cox is a safety at Florida A&M who showed really good instincts, very good tackler, and made big plays when they needed to be made. 4 solo tackles, also an assist, 2 pass breakups, and 1 interception that was instrumental in the outcome of the game. Next, Malcolm Rodriguez. I've already admitted previously my bias regarding Malcolm Rodriguez. He's probably going to test super well. Teams aren't going to love him. I don't care. He is not exactly the right size, but we talk about tackling. He was a state champion wrestler in a state where it's hard to be a state champion wrestler. And he has terrific tackling technique. He gets to the right place. He gets there at the right angle more often than not. He had 3 solos, 8 assists, and organizes everything on defense for Oklahoma State. Next is Devante Wyatt. This is a player I've noticed a few times, and I just figured I had to at some point work him in. 3 solo tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, also a forced fumble and 3 quarterback hurries, active, disruptive, all those terms you hear people say about interior players who, even though their stats, the stats are solid, but they don't reflect really what he brought to the table. And we talk a lot about certain defensive lines, and we often talk about whoever the stud is, the guy that they talk about in the pregame show. Sometimes we leave out the other players. Moving on, I want to make mention of Ryan Bowman. He's one of those hybrid defensive end outside linebacker types that really are everywhere nowadays. 2 solo tackles, an assist, 1.5 tackles for loss, a sack, quarterback hurry. Once again, his impact was bigger than those stats. Here's a guy that we're just beginning to talk about, still not enough. Josh Paschal at Kentucky. He looks the part. He is going to test well, and we're going to look back and say, late rise or whatever. Trust me, the NFL knows exactly who he is and has a pretty solid assessment of his chances to be a really good player at the next level. He had 5 solo tackles, he also had 2 assists, and a blocked field goal that was extremely important, once again, to the outcome of the game. Next, I'm going to go to LSU's inside linebacker, Devante Clark. 8 solo tackles, 5 assists, a forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries, and a pass breakup, and a partridge in a pear tree. Very impressive day at the office for him. Some players, you notice them, like I said, they sort of creep around in the background and then they suddenly sort of burst out of the background. He falls in that category. He's been there for a while and just hadn't really established himself as an impact player to me. Now I see him week after week becoming more and more, putting his thumbprint more on the games. Reed Blankenship is a guy, it feels like, I know with the extra year of eligibility, it feels like I've been watching him for 6 years. Maybe not 6, but a while. And he just shows up. He just shows up week after week after week. 5 solo, 2 assists, 2 fumble recoveries, a forced fumble, a pass breakup, and most importantly, a scoop and score of 90 yards. I don't know if he's going to be an NFL player or not. I know that if he doesn't make it, it won't be for lack of effort and lack of study. He is a very highly intelligent player. People use terms of quarterback of the secondary. It's incredibly true when you talk about him. Corian Harris of McNeese State. Now, McNeese State, obviously, is sort of overshadowed by LSU, and even, Louisiana's having a great year, or good year. But I truly believe that McNeese State has at least 3 and maybe more players who are going to make 53-man rosters in the NFL. He is one of them. 3 solo tackles, 2 assists, 1 tackle for loss, a sack. And once again, there's the thing about it's the positions I think that people on defense consistently underestimate the importance of are defensive tackle and safety, especially if it's a safety who plays deep middle. Is very often when you do things right, you're shoving things, forcing things, right, to other people. But yes, he's a player I really like. Speaking of safeties, Slade Campbell of Campbell, right? That's Darian Slade of Campbell. Sorry, 3 solo tackles, 8 assists, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery that he returned for 25 yards. He's another one of those players that I just talked about, Reed Blankenship. He does everything right. I don't know how well he'll test. I hope he tests super well. Because obviously when you're coming, from an FCS program that's not even one of the more prominent FCS programs, you need to have a great pro day, but I just like him. I like him a lot. Here's a guy that I had noticed a little more in the past, and then he went quiet for a while. Well, he's not quiet anymore. Darian Brokenberg of Tennessee State, 6 solo tackles, 1 assist, 2.5 sacks, and he looks the part. Long-limbed, broad-shouldered, narrow waist. Once again, as often you find at that level, could use another 12, 15, 17 pounds, but he's got the stuff you look for. He looks the part once he fills out. He will look the part. Morehead State's Vaughn Taylor very much looks the part. 262-ish pounds and probably about 6'2.5". He is a Kansas transfer, and they have no answers for him. 12 tackles, which is a lot of tackles for a defensive end. 3.5 of them were tackles for loss. And he helped out on 2 sacks. I don't think he had any solo sacks, but he's just consistently a problem. And he's good against the run, too. Cooper Krozek, once again, safeties. Things that should be obvious, but the word in the name safety is safe. And a lot of safeties make splashy plays, but they move themselves out of position that allow and give up other plays. What I like about certain safeties, he's one of them, is that first of all, they are safe. He knows how to stay deeper than the deepest, wider than the widest, to keep things in front of him. But still, he had 5 solo tackles, 6 assists, 1 tackle for loss, and 4 pass breakups. So he's not playing it too safe, but solidly safe. Idaho State is the Bengals, right? Are a program that I remember years when Idaho was still an FBS program and they would beat them. Now they're not quite at that height anymore. They've come down a little bit, but they're still a solid program. And Jaden Dawson had a great day. Not good, great. 8 tackles, 1 fumble recovery, 1 forced fumble, 2 pass breakups, and an interception. That's a stat stuffer right there. And he's a guy that, once again, is sort of that, we talk about hybrid players a lot, but what you're asking, especially in those 4-2-5 defenses and 3-3-5 defenses that are becoming very, very common, is you're asking at least one guy who was a linebacker or one guy who was a safety to take on the identity of a little bit of both. And some guys struggle with it and others excelling. Moving on, Stephen F. Austin. Bryce Notree. I wonder if he's related. There was a player probably many years ago named Bryant Notree that I scouted. I wonder if they're related. But 5 solo tackles, 1 assist, also a tackle for loss, sack, and interception. A linebacker who can play in space, but also very good blitzer. Also, moving on to not San Diego State, which has a great defense, but University of San Diego, the Toreros, not the Aztecs. Kama Kamaka, I hope I pronounced that correctly, had a very good day. 3 solo, 3 assists, 3 tackles for loss. 2 of those tackles for loss were solo tackles for loss. A forced fumble and a fumble recovery, including a scoop and score for a touchdown. If you have a scoop and score for a touchdown, you're very likely to make my superlatives, unless that's the only play you make. But he had a really good game already, and then that was the cherry on top. Marist has a safety that I really like named Teddy Wright. And unlike a lot of FCS safeties who, sort of look like nickelbacks, this guy looks like a safety, like a real safety. He has a nice build on him, moves well, comfortable in space, but can come down in the box and get the job done. He had 8 solo tackles, which once again tells you a lot about his level of activity. 3 assists, also 1.5 tackles for loss, including a sack and an interception. Not much more you can do. Also, moving on, Marco Johnson. 6 solo tackles, 3 assists, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 interception, 1 pass breakup, and a quarterback hurry. Once again, did some of everything. I love it when a guy has something in almost every category. Those guys almost always make my superlatives. This is a player I liked last year. And in fact, I liked him the year before that. He was a special teams standout at Hawaii who worked his way into becoming a defensive starter, and now he's a defensive stud. Bethley has played, once again, we talked about hybrid, he's played both safety spots, or I guess they really have 3 safety spots. He's played all of them in his career there. He can defend the slot. He can come down in the box and light people up. He can play deep middle, deep half, deep third. There's a place in the NFL for Corey Bethley of Hawaii. 6 solo tackles, 3 assists, also a tackle for loss, 1 forced fumble, including a strip sack, right? That was very important to the outcome game, and 2 interceptions. So he generated 3 turnovers. He's a big reason, in my mind, why Fresno State lost the game to Hawaii. And in fact, the game-winning field goal, he set it up with the strip sack I mentioned. Okay, UVA has some interesting players. And in Ambre Amico, he's a player that, once again, I've noticed in the past but didn't quite grab my attention. Well, you have my attention now. 5 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and a safety. That, sir, is getting it done. Congratulations. Wake Forest is an underrated program. They've won every game they've been in so far. No one wants to talk about them, but I'm going to talk about some of their players. I'm going to talk about one of the wide receivers later, but I'm talking about Travion Bell right now. 11 total tackles, sorry. One forced fumble. And once again, assignment sound. Keep up the good work, sir. Clay Batson, defensive tackle of Yale. Now, Peterson at Yale is, a guy who's probably not going to play at the next level. But I'm not completely sold on the fact that he couldn't maybe move to a different position. Now, the issue obviously is either he has to get bigger or get smaller. He's in that, in-between spot where he's not big enough to be a defensive tackle, maybe defensive end, but, is he athletic enough? And could he lose enough weight to become an inside linebacker? Who knows? I like him anyway. First of all, 9 solo tackles. If you're a defensive tackle with 9 solo tackles, that says everything. 5 total tackles for loss. 4 of them were sacks, right? So he had 5 total tackle for losses. 4 of those tackles for loss, 4 of them were sacks. That's nuts from the defensive tackle position. Once again, you may be the player of the week, my friend. Jahari K, Sam Houston State University, 6 solo tackles, 2 assists, 2.5 tackles for loss. Of those 2.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 for sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 quarterback hurries, and a pass breakup. Other than if you got an interception, I guess there's really nothing else you could he almost got the whole bingo card filled. Well done, Jahari. Ty Okuda, 5 solo tackles, 5 assists, 2 forced fumbles, an interception. He's from Montana State, and he's a baller. I think he can play on Sundays. DeMarco Jackson, I made earlier mention of. He's from Appalachian State. Just shows up. Every week I see him, he shows up. I made mention of him before. I think he has a chance to play on Sundays. I mentioned Josh Paschal. He has a chance to play on Sundays. Some of these guys are guys that are just good college players. Some of these guys are guys who are Sunday players. I mentioned McNeese State. Cordell Jackson is a Sunday player to me. First of all, 17 total tackles, which is a nutty, crazy number. 15 of them solo. I'm going to run that back. So the person that's giving Clay Peterson a run for, in my mind, Defensive Player of the Week is this kid right here. Not a kid at all. It's a man right there. 15 solo tackles, right? Of those 17, 2 tackles for loss that were solo tackles for loss. Getting it done. Let's see. Jonathan Harwood. He had a defensive end who very, very active, including, he's at Davidson, 4 solo tackles, a couple of sacks, right? Which is always getting it done. And mixed in with that a tackle for loss on top of the sacks. And then last but not least amongst the defensive players, Ray Estes of cornerback Grambling, 5 solo tackles, an assist, a tackle for loss, 3 pass breakups, long, good in coverage. I need to see more before I'm ready to sort of pronounce what I think it is, but I think he's got a shot.